the last 2 years of my college, I got in an orchestra, the Grand Rapids Symphony, and it was 2 hours, 2.5 hours away from Ann Arbor.
Oh, you played the Grand Rapids?
I played in Grand Rapids, and they had just started a brass quintet within the orchestra, and you were sort of a fellow, and you played brass quintet concerts, and you were sort of like a full-time member of the orchestra, and it was enough to live on, and so I started driving there and spending more time there, and because I was getting playing experience that I wasn't getting at school. I got to play pictures in the Grand Rapids Symphony. I got to play Symphony Fantastique. I got to play these kinds of pieces that I was never going to get to play at school. And given that this is what I wanted to do, I let school slide. I just this is giving me what I want, and school isn't. So and this is where Torchinsky comes in again. I got to say about him that he sort of became my second father, and I won the father lottery because I had a great real father. He was the best man at my wedding, so I was very close to my father, and I got another father too, and I talked to him at least twice a month until he died. We just became good friends. And he knew I had this job, and he knew I could make a living there. And he told me, he said, if you stay in Grand Rapids, he said, I'll never speak to you again. He said, you get out. He said, you go to New York. Because that's what he did. He went to New York. That's how it worked for him. So, he said, you go to New York. And so I did. And I showed up in New York with, like $500 in my pocket, no place to live, no job. I quickly found a place to live, and I quickly found a job. And the job was repairing brass instruments. And mind you, I'd taken a jewelry class in high school. So I knew a little bit about, soldering and, and working with instruments a little bit. But, so I had some hand skills. I knew from going to Aspen as a student. I knew Ed Carroll was a trumpet player, and I ended up rooming with him. He and I, shared an apartment. And I knew Dave Langlitz, the trombone player. He played principal in the Met. And they wanted, and Dave Langlitz knew Mark Gould, who was the principal trumpet in the Met, and they wanted to put a quintet together. So, so they got me in this quintet, and we didn't have any jobs or anything, but we played at least, we practiced at least once a week together, just because we enjoyed playing with each other and playing. And these people were so much better than I was. They were so much better than me, and I just felt like, oh man, I'm working at Giardinelli, repairing instruments, 8 hours a day, and and I'm going home and I'm practicing. I'm not sloughing off. My life sucked during that year because I worked 8 hours a day. I didn't have any money, and I just came home and practiced. I mean that was my life. Go to work, come home, practice, go to sleep, get up, do it the next day. That was my life. And I look forward to these rehearsals, because it was my sole musical outlet. It saved my musical life. It just really did. One, because I got to keep playing, and I had something to practice for. Like we played the Alvin Etler Brass Quintet. It's a really hard thing, so I had to practice like crazy for that, and we played the Ingolf Dahl Brass Quintet, and I played the second trombone part, on my F tuba on that, and I played it where it was written. I didn't take anything down an octave. So, so I was really working to keep up with these guys, and I didn't realize that how much better they were making me just just by me being in the same room with him. And a few months later, the Houston Symphony audition came up in April, and it was April 14th, so about 48 years ago. I went down and I had a good day, and I won the job, and I thought, oh my
do you
God.
remember how many people auditioned?
I think it was 25,
Okay.
30, something like that.
Was there any like famous people?
You needed to get an invite to the audition.
Okay.
And Torchinsky, of course, he knew everybody. He knew the personnel manager from time in New York. He called him up and said, yeah, listen to this guy. So, and then he called me and said, okay, I got you in the door. Now you have to go play.
I see.
Yeah, so I went down, and that was a happy day for me. It meant I could stop working at the repair shop. The New York Philharmonic audition, they would listen to anybody, but the way they whittled it down was one of the pieces required was the Kraft Encounters.
Oh.
It was on the list.
Okay.
It was on the list. Well, the great thing is, I had just done that piece on a recital in November. That November.
Oh, okay.
So I thought, okay.
Okay.
So we get through the prelims, and they want me to come back next day for the finals. And the finals, they listen to 4 people, and then they send 2 of them away, and it's just down to 2 of us, and we play some more. And they say, can you guys come? It was a Friday. Can you guys come back next Tuesday and play a rehearsal with the orchestra? We want to hear you in the orchestra. And so we arranged that. Don Harry was the other guy, and so we both arranged that. And I heard that they want a bigger sound from me. And I was going to a concert on Saturday night, and I ran into Zubin in the hall, and I told him, I said, I just bought a bigger instrument. I said, but I don't know it well enough. I'm a little suspect of intonation on it, And he looks and he said, oh, you should have brought it. And I said, well, I think I can get it here. I have a student who has a key to my apartment. I think I can get it here by Tuesday. And he looks at me and he says, you should do that. So this was before all the craziness with the airlines. So my student went in my apartment. He got the horn. He took it to the airport, and he took it to the plane, and he put it in the seat, strapped it in, flew it to New York. And and Eddie, my roommate, had a car. He went out to LaGuardia and picked up the tuba and brought it back. So I had the weekend to try and figure out the pitch on this thing, And then we played the rehearsal, and at the end of the rehearsal, I guess it was a big enough sound for them. So.
4人残ってたんでしょ?
Yeah, there were 4 people in the final, and they sent 2 people back. And that was the final people was him, Warren, and Mr. Don Harry was the other guy?
Yes.
Don Harry was the other guy.
あ、日本だとね、ピラフィアンさんだっていう伝説になってるんだけど。
So Japanese people think it was Sam Pilafian who was in the final too. What?
Sam was one of the 4.
Okay.
Sam was one of the 4.
Okay. But the real final guy was
Don and me.
Okay.
バッファローで吹いてた人だよね。
The principal tubist of the Buffalo Symphony. And long time teacher of the Eastman School of Music.
ああ、そうだったんですね。